Hey friends! So today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal. We're going to be talking about my personal testimony, and so it's just going to be me in the video. So we're still G and A, but right now you're just going to be seeing A. That's me. Okay, so if you haven't watched last week's video, be sure to watch that. It'll be in the description box and it'll be in the information tab. And make sure you follow us on social media. We have Instagram and Twitter at GNA forToday. Both of those handles are at GNA forToday because we post some cool stuff. And every Monday, I don't know if y'all noticed, but on Instagram we post a little fun fact about ourselves. So that's really interesting to see every week. It's really cool. So make sure you give us a follow there. So this week's video is going to be about my personal testimony and how I came to know the Lord. So let's dive into it. I feel like this video is not going to be that long because I don't like talking about myself a lot. So just bear with me. So I've been going to church literally all my life. I'm pretty sure my parents went to church like whenever I was in the womb. So yeah, I've grown up in church all my life. Every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, I was always at church. Loved it. I never really questioned it. I was not one of those kids that would like fight my parents because I didn't want to go to church. Like, I always loved going to church. It was like one of my favorite parts of the week. I just always looked forward to it. But fast forward to I was in 3rd grade. So I think I was 7. You're 7 in 3rd grade, yeah. 7. I was 7 years old, and one of my friends that went to church with me and went to school with me, she ended up getting baptized on like a Sunday night. And then I felt like, she's getting baptized, this is cool, like I want to know more about this. So right after the baptismal service, I went to my pastor and was like, I want to get baptized. And then he like gave me a list of verses to go home and read and talk about them with my parents. And so I did that. I don't know, this is like a weird story. I'm sorry, I feel like I have a weird testimony. But looking back on it now, I mean, up to that point, my parents would always like tell me like, you need to be saved, you need to be baptized, like it's very important. And for some reason I was like, I'm just not ready, I don't want to yet. And now, looking back on it, I feel like it was because I'm a younger sister. I have an older sister, and I've always wanted to like be like her. When I was a kid, I would like copy what she did and stuff. My sister got saved when she was 7 years old, and I feel like I didn't want to get saved until I was 7 years old so I could do it just like my sister did it. So when I was 7 years old and my friend got baptized, I feel like, looking back on it now, I just did it because I was 7 and I wanted to be 7 when I got baptized, and I feel like I was like, ooh, my friend did it, so I want to do it. So I feel like I didn't really do it for the right reasons. But I did talk to my parents about it, and I remember going in, my mom was home, my dad wasn't home yet, but I went into their room, and I told my mom, I said, I want to be baptized. She said, okay, let's call the pastor and let's pray. So we called him on the phone and we prayed, and I accepted Christ. And it's kind of iffy. I feel like in my heart, I feel like I wasn't truly saved until later. I don't really know, like, I know that I believed in Jesus, but I just really don't think I was doing it for the right reasons. It's kind of confusing, but I really didn't feel like I was doing it for the right reasons. But a couple weeks later, I got baptized at church, and so that was a good time. And I never, like, up until it was my senior year in high school. I mean, throughout this whole, pretty much all of my life, I never have like strayed away from God or fallen into a bunch of ugly stuff. Like, I feel like every day I have a relationship with God. I just can't really relate to those testimonies that are so powerful and so like I was living in a life of sin, and then when I became saved, it was completely different. I turned my life around. For me, it really wasn't like that. I feel like my life didn't drastically change just because I grew up in church, and I mean, I was walking around Christians all the time, so I was pretty much acting like a Christian all the time. So some people might say that's bad that my life didn't drastically change like that, but I think of it like my heart drastically changed, not really my actions, because my actions were pretty much the same. but I mean, it's what matters in your heart, not your actions, because you can act a certain way and not have right intentions, and then you not truly be saved. But so my senior year of high school, it was the summer before my senior year actually. We went to this summer camp. It's actually the same summer camp that I've worked at for 2 summers, and so it was a tradition that every summer we would go there with the youth. And for some reason, for a couple of weeks, I had been thinking in the back of my mind, like, what if I'm not actually saved? Like, I remember one time my pastor, he says this a lot, but I remember, and my pastor would say, like, if you died today, like right now, would you know 100% that you're going to heaven? And I felt like I didn't know 100%, and I was really worried about that. I'm like, I want to be saved, like I want to go to heaven. Like, what if all this time, since I did it for the wrong reasons, what if I wasn't actually saved? So all these questions were going through my mind. As a high schooler, it was just like a lot. I was so confused. So at camp, I asked my youth pastor and his wife about it, and we kind of talked about it in the van ride home from camp with 2 of my other friends. And actually, one of my friends that was riding with me, she really felt the same convictions and questions. And I felt like that was a God thing, that we were both placed in the van that on that trip, and we both got the opportunity to have a 5-hour van ride with our superiors to be able to talk about this. So we asked them a lot of questions about that, and he was like, just pray about it. I mean, if you really don't know if you're saved, then you should like rededicate your life, as some people call it. And so I really prayed about that, but I was so worried to tell my parents, because I was like, I'm a Christian, like I've been living like a Christian, they're gonna be so confused, I don't know. So I went out to eat with my parents and my youth pastor and his wife, because I was worried to tell, I don't know. And so I brought them whenever we went out to eat, and then so when we went out to eat, I like told them, I was like, I want to like get saved, like again. Does that make sense? And so they like were so supportive, and they just like asked me like why and what my reasonings were, which rightfully they definitely should have, and they were so supportive about it. So I remember in Sunday school, we had Sunday school, and instead of going off to my class, my youth pastor pulled me and the girl that were in the van on that trip. They pulled us in the side in this little corner in this room. I can still picture it. And we were sitting on these brown chairs, and they were like, all right, are you ready? And I was like, yes, I'm ready. I've decided that I want to. So we just like prayed and handed our hearts over to God, and I just like, wow, like that feeling was so amazing. And I don't really know if I felt that feeling when I got saved when I was 7. It might just be I was so young that I don't remember having that feeling, but I know that I definitely had this feeling of like the Lord being inside me, and just like I'm his servant now. Like so many emotions that I can't even describe really, but it was so overwhelming and so peaceful. So I decided to get rebaptized, and my youth pastor rebaptized me in this lake, and I really struggled with I didn't tell anyone but my family and the people that were with me. Like, I didn't tell anyone else. I just told Grace Ann like 4 years ago. Was it 4 years? Yeah, I told her a while after it happened, like 1 or 2 years after it happened, because I was so worried to tell like my church family, my youth group, my friends. I was so worried to tell them that, like, I was worried that they would think I was being fake all these years, and I was not actually a Christian. I was just faking all my actions, and I was just a terrible person. Like, I know now that they would not have reacted that way, but back then I was so nervous that they were going to feel that way towards me. When I actually told Grace Ann, she was like, oh my goodness, you got rebaptized and you didn't tell me. Like, I would have wanted to be there and like celebrate you, but I don't know, I was so scared. I am so glad that I did. I know for sure now that the Lord is living in me, and that I am his servant and that I will go to heaven. Not that the only reason to get saved is to go to heaven. It's just a perk. But you should long to be saved because Jesus is Jesus. God is God. Like, why would you not want him to dwell in you? You should just want to be so in sync with him that you are just one, kind of. I think of it as like a marriage. Whenever you marry someone, you become one. I feel like when you get saved, you become one almost. It's like your conscience, that's the word, your conscience is like the Holy Spirit, and like, all these things are like in you instead of you just knowing about them. There's a big difference. But I really hope that makes sense. I feel like this is such a really weird concept to wrap our minds around, and I don't know if we ever will completely wrap our minds around the idea of God dwelling inside of us. But if you have not had that experience, I would just please DM me on Instagram or Twitter, or put in the comments if you have any questions, or please put in the comments like what your salvation story is. And I know that's not like a super elaborate story or anything like that. As I told you, my life never really drastically changed like some people's, but that doesn't mean that my testimony isn't powerful, because I'm sure there are people out there that can relate to my testimony. So I went through it, so I want to be able to help others that are going through it as well. So if you have a testimony like mine, or one of those like, I've been to church all my life, I've never been super rebellious or anything like that, you've just always acted like a Christian, like that doesn't mean that your testimony isn't powerful. That doesn't mean that you can't tell people your testimony, because someone will relate to it. But that doesn't mean that if your testimony is super type A person to type B person, that doesn't mean that those type of testimonies aren't powerful either, because those are super powerful. I'm saying that they're both very powerful in different ways, because people can learn from both sides of the coin. I hope that some of you can relate to this video, and please let me know if you can. Please, what I learned from all this is that your true friends and your true family members, like, they're not gonna judge you, they're gonna support you and be happy for you. Like, salvation is a big deal, and if you really feel it on your heart so much that you are like really having so much anxiety about it and all this stuff, then like, it's not bad to like rededicate your life or whatever. Like, that's not a bad thing. Like, there's nothing bad that could come out of that. Sorry, that was a lot, but also not a long story. I definitely feel like, I keep on talking about like marriage and stuff, but I feel like your relationship with God is like being married and like loving someone. Every single day you have to make the decision, like, even though I don't like you right now, I'm gonna love you. Even though right now you're really getting on my nerves and I'm in an awful mood, like, I'm going to love you and show love. Like, that's how our relationship with Jesus should be. Like, every single day, even if we've had the worst day ever, we should still give glory to God. We should still just unconditionally love God, and how our actions show that. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you tune in next week for Grace Ann's testimony. Honestly, hers will probably be a lot longer because she is more long-winded than me, haha. And that's not a bad thing. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please tune in next week and leave some comments about your testimonies. We would love to hear about your personal stories. Bye, friends.